Great. So a very warm welcome to everybody. We'll just do a few little introductions at the beginning. My name is Michael Kern, and I'm the course director here at CTT in London. I've been teaching this work for many, many years now. I think it must be 35 years, something like that. And I still feel inspired, and it's such a beautiful work to practice and such a beautiful work to teach. What I hope to do this evening is to just go through a few kind of basic principles with you, and also to do a couple of experiential exercises so that maybe you can get a little taster about what this work is about. What I'd like to do actually right now at the beginning is just to introduce you to a few colleagues of mine who are also here. That's a couple of them are not able to stay for the whole evening. But first of all, I just want to introduce Fabio, who's our Zoom technician. So he's giving a little bit of a wave right now. And then I'm going to pass you on to one of the teachers and a couple of teachers and also assistants of the training that's starting next spring in London, just so that they can introduce themselves and you can put the faces to the names as well. So over to you guys if you want to say a few sentences about yourself.
Hello, I'm Ruth. I live in London. I'm a CTT graduate, and I've been a massage and bodywork therapist for over 30 years. And I'm really looking forward to being an assistant on the next course that starts in April.
Thank you, Ruth.
I'll jump in next. Hi, everyone. My name is Satu. I'm coming in tonight from Helsinki, Finland, from a wintry evening here. I'm very happy to be joining the next training as a tutor with the team that you are about to meet. I'm also a somatic movement therapist and have been in practice for almost 30 years.
So, hi everybody, I'm Nikolai and I'm joining you from Copenhagen. I'm a senior tutor on the upcoming training that starts in April. And besides being a biodynamic cranial practitioner and teacher, I also am very greatly inspired by pre- and perinatal psychology. So how we deal with our early imprints. I have a movement background in dance, yoga, and meditation. And I've been teaching in Denmark for a number of years and been happy to teach with Michael in London and in Warsaw and in Shanghai for some years now. So I'm hoping to see some of you when we start the next training.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you. And okay, so I'm going to just start to share my screen because I've got some slides that I want to show you. So let's just get this going. And so then, great. Okay. Can you see that okay? Yeah, is that coming up onto your screens? Beautiful. So what I'm planning to talk about this evening is really just a couple of core principles that we use in biodynamic craniosacral therapy. As I say, it's really just to give a taster. And we're going to look at the principle of what is called the neutral, and how we, both as practitioners, but also clients, might start to access the neutral. This work was developed by Dr. William Sutherland, who was an osteopath who about, what would it be now, about 125 years ago, had a kind of revelation that the bones of the head are designed for movement, designed for a respiratory movement. And that led him on a whole journey, an odyssey. For many years, he passed away, died in 1954, and really dedicated the whole of his life into investigating what these movements are and what is their significance. And what he found was that there are a number of subtle rhythms that play through us that have great significance for our health. If they express freely and openly, then we are in a good state of health. But if there are some, let's say, restrictions or holding patterns or patterns of dysregulation or inertia in the way in which these subtle motions express through our physiologies, this is a primary precursor for the development of disease and pathology. And Sutherland developed a whole range of skills, essentially to treat people, to help to restore these subtle rhythmic motions. And put very simply, when that happens, people get better. People get better from a whole wide range of different conditions and pathologies. Now, it was Sutherland who coined the phrase the neutral. He actually lived in Detroit for some years, and he took some of his terminology from the car industry, because Detroit was the home of the car industry in North America. And so this term neutral, he used it, when your car is in neutral, basically it is available for movement in any direction. If your car is in first gear, then there's only one way that it can go, and that's forwards. If your car is in reverse, there's only one way that it can go, and that's backwards. But neutral depicts a certain kind of availability. So whichever forces are acting upon the car will respond accordingly. And he used this term also to describe a state that both the practitioner and the patient can access as a kind of entry point into a deeper therapeutic process. In biodynamic jargon terminology, the neutral means an embodied state of letting go. It is a state of availability and openness. And I say an embodied state because it's a state where we're very much in touch with what's present, and we are in touch with body sensations and body experience. But we're also in a state of openness and availability. And it works really with two key therapeutic principles. And the first one is that health is not just the absence of disease. Health is an active imperative that is constantly working. Health is something that's constantly seeking to be expressed through our physiologies. There are forces of health that are constantly looking to find expression within our bodies. So this is something that's going on all the time, and I'll explain a little bit more about this shortly. But so what is key in a therapeutic process is that we have some kind of availability for the health that is present. In other words, if we are available, then things can start to process and things can start to get better. And really, this practice is based on helping to create conditions that allow that to happen. And the neutral is one of the key conditions that allows the health that is present to begin to express, perhaps in places that it hasn't done for many, many years. So we are constantly seeking health. It's something that never stops. No matter how sick, how depressed, no matter how exhausted, no matter how many conditions we may have, there's always this impulse to find the best possible health. The problem is that we're very often limited by the conditions that are being held, and so the health doesn't have the full opportunity to express. But it doesn't mean that it's not there. It's always there at every single stage of life. So, no matter what condition we might be in, no matter what condition our clients might be in, their body physiologies are doing the best that they can in order to seek the best possible health given whatever conditions are present. Another principle is that our body physiologies know what is needed in order to heal. In our, kind of contemporary world, we spend so much time fighting the body. We spend so much time overriding the body. We spend so much time masking the symptoms of the body. Yet, what we experience as practitioners in biodynamics is that the body is profoundly intelligent. It knows why it became sick. It also knows how to heal. And part of the role of the practitioner in our field is to listen to the body, to listen to what the body wants to do, and to follow the lead of the body rather than imposing kind of ideas or techniques or whatever onto the patient, or being directive. So we're going to look a little bit at this principle also during the evening. And that when we do that, our capacities for healing are absolutely huge. Of course, we, very often we limit ourselves in terms of what we think is possible. I'm not making wild and, can I say, ridiculous claims, but sometimes people get better from diseases and conditions that, in all honesty, they shouldn't have got better. They've been given a terminal prognosis, or something. You just have to live with this. But something can change, and myself and some of my colleagues have seen this on a number of occasions. And when I was studying naturopathy many years ago, we were taught a kind of a certain adage in naturopathy, which is that there's no such thing as an incurable disease. There are only incurable people. And we can work with that person, as particularly if that person is willing to do that work. We can work with that person in order to access these self-healing capacities. The founder of osteopathy, who is really, we could say, the grandfather of craniosacral practice, also realized that we have everything in our body physiologies that is needed for healing. He said, the brain is God's drugstore, having within all drugs, lubricating oils, opiates, acids, and every quality of drug that the wisdom of God thought necessary for human happiness and health. So he's saying, and this was way before we had discovered the function of things like neurotransmitters and natural painkillers within the body. Dr. Still, the founder of osteopathy, realized that all of these different substances can be accessed within the body if we can find the right conditions. One of the students of Dr. Sutherland was a pioneer in this practice called Dr. Roland Becker. And he described this impulse to find health, this kind of energy to find health. He called it the bioenergy of wellness. And he said, this is the most powerful force in the world. In other words, it's not that it works on a good day if you're lucky. It is something which is incredibly potent, incredibly effective, and something that we can rely on if we're able to access these healing forces. The forces that I'm describing, the forces of health, are actually the same forces that created us in the first place. In other words, when we were little embryos, there's an incredible level of organization that, can I say, directs how an embryo unfolds in its development. We all started out as a single cell, and from that single cell, the cell divided and it multiplied, and then we implanted, and then different cell types started to differentiate. And from those different cell types, body systems were formed and organs were formed. And there's been a lot of debate and discussion within the field of embryology as to, well, what is it that actually directs this process? And a lot of people have been placing a great emphasis on the role that genetics plays in directing this process. But the truth of the matter is, there have never been any genetics found capable of being primarily responsible for our early embryological development. But what genetics do is that they modify things, they create conditions. So in other words, genetics will determine whether we have brown eyes or blue eyes, but not whether we have eyes. Or they will determine whether we have brown skin or pale skin, but not whether we have skin, or whether we have blonde hair or black hair, but not whether we have hair. So it's not that genetics are insignificant. Genetics have a very significant role, but they're not primarily responsible for our embryological development. That this seems to occur through some other kind of force that plays through us. And in our understanding in biodynamics, those forces that created us in the first place, however many years ago it was, whether it was 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, whatever, those forces are still expressing within our physiologies. And these are the forces that maintain us and heal us. In other words, we are constantly being created. Embryology was not just something that happened, all those years ago when we were a few cells or a single cell or a little bunch of cells or a developing, early embryo. We are constantly being created. All of the cells of the body are in this process of dying and of reformation. Within about a 1-year period, your whole body is actually a different body than how it was a year previously. Every cell is in this process of reformation. And this also gives us perhaps a clue as to where some of the potentiality for healing can be found, because if we can access those forces of creation, those embryological forces, then even in the most severe medical conditions, there can be an opportunity for healing, for reformation, for, as it were, redevelopment. And what Sutherland perceived, and this is one of the premises and the principles of biodynamic practice, is that these forces are carried within the subtle rhythms that Sutherland had identified and that we can learn how to palpate. And when those rhythms are able to express without impediment, then these intelligent forces can essentially keep us in a state of health and well-being, which doesn't mean that we don't age and we don't die. Of course, we all go through natural cycles of life, but we can go through these different stages, I would say, in a state of health. Perhaps we can even die in a state of health as well, if we're in touch with these forces of organization. And of course, these are not just individual forces. These are not just forces that express individually within our body physiology. These are the same forces that we see all around us. These are universal forces. We see the same patterns of formation in galaxies and stars as we do in embryos. And so we are intimately connected to not just to the forces that are inside our bodies, but also to the forces that are outside of our bodies. And here is a lovely quote from the great physicist Nikola Tesla. He said, "There is no energy in matter other than that received from the environment." And again, another great physicist said, "The space around us is not empty, it is a plenum, as opposed to a vacuum, and it is the ground of existence of everything, including ourselves. The universe is not separate from this cosmic sea of energy." In other words, we as living beings are living in an interchange with these fields of energy that are not only inside us, but also outside of us. And similarly, like as a sort of a single cell has to be in interchange with, letting things in and letting things out. If a cell can't get rid of its waste products, and if it can't take in its vital forces and its oxygen and its nutrients, the cell will disintegrate and die, or it will start to suffer. It was not going to function to its optimum capacity. So this is something that happens at a microcosmic level, but it's also something that happens at a macrocosmic level, not just at a cellular level. Each organism, each human being is in this interchange with its environment. And if that interchange is open and free, we're able to, as it were, receive those life-giving forces that are present. And we're able also to let go of and release whatever it is that's not needed for our healthy functioning. So the founder of osteopathy recognized this, and he realized that sickness is actually a result of some kind of stoppage, some kind of inertia that's present within this process. That if we can help to re-establish this flow of life and movement of fluid within the body, then sickness will start to be resolved. So one of the keys to accessing these forces is to listen to the intelligence in the body. And if we can follow the body's natural needs, natural physiological needs, then we can start to access an opening to these kinds of forces. And what I'd like to do with you now, actually, is to do a little exercise just to start with, to pay attention to what it is that's going on in our bodies. Maybe I'm going to just come out of the screen share for now. And let me just come back into the main meeting. There we go. What I'd like you to do, what I'm going to invite you to do, is to just get yourselves into a comfortable position. There's nothing to write right now. See if you can just get your body well supported wherever it is you're seated. Take a few minutes just for closing your eyes. And start to bring your attention to what's present in your body right now. What do you notice? How are the sensations? Now, as you bring your attention inside, you may notice that there are some sensations that are pleasant, and there may be sensations that are not pleasant or even painful. See if you can just allow whatever's present in your body to be present. See if you can just allow your body to do what it is it wants to do. In other words, not trying to manage, not trying to control, not trying to fight whatever it is that's going on in your body, but just acknowledging it. Maybe it's easy, maybe it's difficult, maybe you're struggling, maybe you've got something painful going on inside you. But see if you can just acknowledge whatever is present. Just allowing your body to do what it is that it wants to do. So in other words, we can let go of controlling. We can let go of managing. And we can just take a little while just for acknowledging whatever it is you're sensing or you're carrying in your body. And just take a few minutes just to allow that. What is it like as you let go of the control, if you let go of the managing, of needing something to happen. And you rest into whatever is present. And it may not be easy. And at the same time as your body sensations, you may have emotions that are associated with those sensations. Maybe you feel sad, maybe you feel fearful, maybe you feel happy, maybe you feel angry, maybe you feel irritated. What would it be like if you just acknowledged those emotions without trying to change anything, without trying to fix anything, but just allow them to be as they are? How does that feel for you? And then you may have thoughts and ideas as well. What would it be like if you just let them happen rather than trying to control them, trying to fix them? In other words, what would it be like if you could just let everything be just as it is? Let your body be as it is. Let your emotions be as they are. Let your thoughts, your ideas, just let them be as they are. And what we might find, it doesn't always happen, but what we might find is that some kind of settling can happen. It's a little bit like an analogy that I use is if you've got a glass of muddy water, and if you want to drink the water, you better not shake the glass. But if you just let the glass stand, if you just let it rest, slowly, slowly, the mud will start to sink towards the bottom of the glass. And you'll have some clear water that you can drink. Now, it doesn't always happen, but let's maybe stay with this for a few minutes, just as a kind of an initial exercise. Closing our eyes and just letting everything be as it is, letting the body be as it is, letting the emotions be as they are. Letting your thoughts be as they are. And just letting everything rest. It'll take just another half a minute. Just notice what goes on in your body. Notice what goes on in your feelings as you just let everything be as it is. In other words, we start to let go. And when we start to let go, it's possible that something else can happen. We'll talk a bit more about this soon. Beautiful, great. So then when you're ready, this is just a short little taster, but when you're ready, if your eyes are closed, you can open your eyes again and just bring them back into the meeting that we're in. And I'm curious, I'd be happy to hear from any of you. How are you doing? What did you notice just in that little, whatever, 5-10 minute exercise? How was that for you? Does anybody want to share? You can share into the chat box, or you're very welcome just to put your video on and put your sound on if you do want to speak. How are you doing? Did any of you struggle with that exercise? Was it very difficult? Sometimes when we slow down and we start to listen to what's going on in the body, actually it can be quite challenging, because sometimes things that we're holding can come to the surface, and we can, sometimes feel worse than we did at the beginning. I wonder if that was the case for any of you here. How are you doing? Any comments or reflections on that?
I can say.
Marta, please come
Yeah.
in.
I felt both positive and not so positive. I felt a lightness and a tightness.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you felt, and this is the thing and this is also can be one of the challenges of doing this practice. For those of you who have had biodynamic craniosacral, you'll know that the practitioner can be sitting maybe hands-on with the patient for maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, not moving. So we really do, it's quite a meditative practice. It's not just meditation, but it is a meditative practice. And as you said, Marta, sometimes when we do that, you can start to notice all of those places in your body that you've been holding, all of the tightness, all of the tension, all of the anxiety, etc., can start to come to the surface. And this is something that, happens quite a lot. It can happen for us as practitioners, but also, of course, it can happen for clients on the table when we've got our hands on them.
Mm.
Yeah, thank you. How are you doing now, Marta?
No, I feel good. But I feel good. I can still sense this. Something tight, but I feel good. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to do another exercise a little bit later on in the webinar. So let's see how you get on with that. All right. I will be opening up to questions later, so do feel free to come in and contribute. I think Anna says you've got very warm feet. That's very good. I don't know where you are, but warm feet is normally a good thing. Yeah, great. So I will open up to questions later on. We're going to do another exercise, and then we'll, just share a little bit, and then I'll talk a little bit about training in this practice and what's involved with that. But let me come back to a screen share. Just bear with me for a moment. So I need to just come back to press the share button and then coming on to play. So one of the ways to, as we said just a little bit before the exercise, one of the ways to access this state of neutrality and availability is to do something like what we just did. It's to listen to the body. It's to take a little bit of time just to give space for whatever it is the body wants to do. So how do we actually find this neutral state, this state of availability? Well, one way is through touch. Touch, it doesn't have to be through touch, but touch is what we use in craniosacral practice. We're using light touch, and we're moving into relationship through touch. And if that relationship is safe, if it is appropriate, if it is spacious, if it is respectful, then the power of touch can be an extraordinary tool to support a healing or therapeutic process. We communicate such a lot through touch and through the quality of touch. On the training courses, we go a great deal into developing lots of nuances within our touch. But research has shown, for example, that we can very clearly interpret different emotions through somebody's touch. In other words, if the person who is touching us may be upset or sad or angry, that this is something that we can feel non-verbally. Touch is a form of communication, and there are so many things that we can communicate. And this notion of healing happening in relationship is actually quite significant. It's quite a big topic, but maybe I'll just touch on it for now. One way of looking at things is that actually we become sick because of some kind of relationship. It might be a relationship, let's say, between our body and a car windscreen, if we're hitting, if we're in a road traffic accident, or it might be because of our relationship between, our body and some inappropriate diet, I don't know, McDonald's and Coca-Cola's on a regular basis. So we're not really getting very good nutrition. Or it might be an emotional relationship, or it might be a relationship of moving through the birth canal. But everything in life happens in relationship. And this is how our conditions are often created, that if we have experiences in relationship that are traumatic or that overwhelm our ability to integrate them, those experiences can remain within our body physiology. But the opposite is true as well. It's the healing that can happen in relationship. And this is something that we use a great deal, developing the safety and the spaciousness and the touch of a therapeutic relationship. In that relationship, it's important that we're not too far in. We can't just kind of dive into somebody's existence, into their life. Otherwise, we're just, first of all, as a practitioner, we're going to get lost. But also from a patient's perspective, somebody's going to be experienced as perhaps being a bit too pushy or a bit too collapsed or a bit too invasive. Yeah. At the same time, this is a well experienced phenomenon these days. We need to be in relationship. We can't do this if we're just disconnected. So the work is very relational. But we also need to not just have a very sort of selective view of attention. If our attention is just on a particular agenda, we might miss what really needs to happen. Here we've got these people, presumably what it looks like, they're on a safari looking for a lion, and they're through their binoculars looking into the distance and not seeing anything, and there's a lion just come and sat behind them. So one of the things that we, from the practitioner's perspective in craniosacral work, is that the practitioner wants to find a neutral state where they're present, where they're in relationship, but where they're orienting and available to the whole of the patient and whatever it is that wants to happen. We're not just going in with selective attention. So, for example, very typically, if I injure my shoulder, I might go to see somebody and they will only look at my shoulder. Yeah, they will ignore the rest of me. Yeah, they might take x-rays, do an MRI, they might come up with an analysis, they might come up with a treatment plan, but they won't necessarily look at the context of that shoulder. What's underneath that? What's underneath that condition? And one of the principles of osteopathy, which is also one of the principles of craniosacral work, is that everything in the body is connected. Dr. Still described that we are a unit of function, an indivisible unit of function. right from the sort of top of the head right down to the tip of the toe. Everything is connected. Nothing in the body works in isolation. And if we just go in with selected attention, just focusing in a limited way, maybe where the symptoms are, we might miss what's actually happening for that patient. And it's not only the patient that is whole in the sense of that everything in the body is interconnected. The patient as a whole being is indivisible. Body and mind are indivisible. Body, mind, and spirit are indivisible. So we have a whole sort of continuum of function that is interconnected, which, if the practitioner can be open to and orient to, it can allow for some deeper process to take place. In this process, a little bit like we did in the exercise earlier, letting go is essential. The neutral involves a state of letting go. It involves not being so clever, not just having all our ideas. I'm very well trained. I've been practicing for 38 years. I've done all kinds of trainings and goodness knows what else. But I need to let go of all of that. I need to let go of all of that learning and all of those qualifications and all of that study, which has actually been very useful. But if I want to listen to what the body physiology is actually wanting to do, I have to understand that it's much more intelligent than I am. And that if I pay attention to that, something much greater, much deeper can happen than if I was just kind of using my cleverness or my expertise or my opinions to determine what kind of treatment I want to give. So the neutral involves a letting go. It involves the practitioner to let go. It also involves the patient to let go. That's not always easy, because when we let go, we have to let go of our ideas. This is a lovely quote from Eckhart Tolle. Being at ease with not knowing is crucial for answers to come to us. So if we want to listen to this deeper intelligence at play, we have to enter that field of not knowing. In Zen Buddhist practice, it's called beginner's mind. That sense of open attention, kind of innocence and inquiry that can allow things to happen. So in other words, we can start to access the spaces in our lives, the spaces between things. This is a quote from a contemporary philosopher, Charles Eisenstein. It's the space between the stories where new knowledge can come in. And that release is also where new growth can happen. So in other words, if we can find the spaces, if we can find the gaps, then something else can happen, something else can shift. And this was another aspect of this is that we take a wide view. We take a wide view of the patient. We include the wholeness of the patient. When we put our hands on them, we listen to their wholeness and we listen to what wants to happen, what wants to move within that wholeness. In the English language, the word wholeness comes from the same root as the word health. So literally in the English language, to be whole is to be healthy. So I'm just seeing somebody's wanting to enter. I can't seem to let them in. Fabio, if you could let them in. So it's the same Latin root that the word health and the word wholeness come from. So literally, to be healthy means to be whole. And this is one of my favorite quotes from the founder of osteopathy. He said, it should be the role of the physician, the object of the physician should be to find health. Anyone can find disease. And this is something quite different within the, I would say, the biodynamic paradigm, where in almost every other therapeutic modality, there are a whole range of different skills to try to resolve and get rid of the disease. In craniosacral practice, we're not trying to do that. What we're trying to do is to find the expressions of health and increase the expressions of health in places where they're not fully expressing. And as a result of the health starting to become increased and becoming expressed in a way that it wasn't before, the diseases start to resolve. And the subtle rhythms of what we call primary respiration, these subtle rhythms of function that were discovered by Dr. Sutherland, are primarily fundamental expressions of health. So when we can create the conditions for these rhythms to express, we are literally supporting expressions of health and then helping to resolve the disease. But in order for this to happen, we have to have this wide view. We have to be able to let go. We have to be able to stop managing and stop controlling. And then there is an opportunity for these rhythms of health to express. So it's not only about looking at the problem, it's not only about looking at what's wrong and trying to deal with it, it's about holding the whole picture. I love this picture. If you only focus on the problem, you might miss the easy solution. I suspect that most of us do this most of the time in our lives. We miss the opportunities. But this is something that a skillful practitioner can help to reestablish for us. This was, I think, also beautifully expressed in a song by Leonard Cohen, who said that there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Fundamentally, the neutral is a kind of a crack. It's a space that can be generated when we start to let go, when we start to feel safe, and when we can become open to whatever it is that we are in interchange with in the environment, when we can start to let things in and when we can start to let things out. When we are in a state of openness and availability, that happens quite naturally. Okay. So what I'd like to do now, I'm going to come out of this again, is I'm going to open up just to see if there's any questions. And then we're going to do another practical exercise. How are you doing? Any comments, any questions so far? I've given you a lot of ideas. I don't know if they've been digestible, but please
Hello.
do.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, is that Gabrielle?
Yes, it's me. Hi.
We don't see you, but we hear you.
Yeah, can you see me now?
Yes, beautiful.
Okay, excellent.
Great.
First of all, thank you for the presentation. I'm very excited, very thrilled to be here. And I've just started my journey as a craniosacralist.
Yes.
So you said something really interesting before. You said about letting go, that the practitioner has to let go, but also the receiver, the patient, has to let go. So what happens, my question is, what happens if my patient doesn't want to let go consciously or maybe unconsciously?
Yes. So then it means that we have to work with the patient where they are. And then there's a whole range of other skills. You know, craniosacral biodynamics is not just a kind of a one skill approach. There are many approaches. Very often it will take quite a few sessions for the client to begin to let go, for the client to begin to feel safe. But very often also the client might really struggle to let go if there's a lot of activation within their nervous system, or if they're in a state of dissociation or disconnection. Usually those kind of states are present where there is unresolved trauma or unresolved stressful dynamics that are going on. And then it's a question of helping that person to process some of those experiences in order to get them to a state where they can let go. So there's often preparatory work that needs to be done. And this is something that we will cover quite a lot on our training course, because you can't always just jump straight away to that state of availability and letting go. It does often need some preparation.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Gabrielle. Good luck in your training. Great. Anyone else? Are you ready for another exercise? We can try something, yeah?
Hey, sorry, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead. What is your name?
I'm Samson. I'm an osteopath. I'm Tibetan osteopath.
What is Samten?
Samten.
Oh, Samten, we had some email recently.
Yes, that's me.
Oh, beautiful. Great.
Yes.
Welcome.
Hi. So, thank you. So you said about that us as practitioners need to be connected with the patient's body, mind, and spirit. So body-wise, we can observe them, like you can connect to them, but how do we connect to them in terms of in terms of spirit and in terms of the mind?
Yes. I think the first step on that is to realize that we don't end at the skin. Yeah.
Right.
There are fields that extend beyond the skin. Yeah. And there are various fields of function. I can't have too much time to go into that in any great depth today.
Okay.
But the practitioner can orient to these different fields of function, not just to the physical body, but also to what we call these organizing fields. And for example, just very briefly, there's a field that is immediately around the body, yeah, which is closely associated with the body. But then there are wider and wider fields of function. But what's necessary for a good state of health is that all of these fields are in open interchange. Like we saw on the slide, that a cell has to be in interchange with its environment. So the physical body has to be in interchange also with these different fields of function. But through these different fields of function, we can start to access, can we say, deeper and deeper aspects of our experience.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, great. Anybody else? Are you up for another exercise? Yes? Okay. So again, just to get yourself comfortable, we're going to kind of do a little bit of what we did before, but we're going to take it a little bit further. What we're going to do, we're going to do a little, again, tuning into the body, but this time, instead of just focusing what's going on in the body, we're going to open up our attention to the space around us. Okay, so it might be the room that you're in, but it might also be what's beyond the walls of the room that you're in. And then we're going to see if we can just rest into that state and allow some kind of interchange, to allow whatever it is that wants to happen. And we're going to see What do we experience when we do that? Does it sound okay? Are you up for that? Yeah? Okay, good. Not if you are. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Great. So, all right. So, just to get yourselves into a comfortable position again. Maybe you feel your bottom on the chair or on the cushion, your feet on the floor. Just getting a sense of your body and what's happening in your body right now. It might be different to what was happening in your body half an hour ago. So what do you notice right now? Maybe close your eyes. Bring your attention inside again. Notice the sensations. Maybe you can start with your lung breathing. Just follow your lung breath for a few cycles. Without trying to change anything or fix anything. Just notice yourself breathing in and breathing out. Don't try to relax your breathing. Don't try to change your breathing. Don't try to modify your breathing. Just let your breath be as it is. And notice the sensations. Maybe notice the sensations in your chest. Okay, this is me breathing in. How is that? What do I notice? This is me breathing out. How is that? What do I notice? Maybe your breath is fast, maybe your breath is deep, maybe your breath is shallow, but just let it be as it is. You're not going to try to control it or modify it. And then just extend your awareness, not just into your chest, but into the rest of your body. You can do a little bit of a body scan, maybe. Just what do you feel in your belly? What do you feel in your pelvis? What do you feel in your feet and your legs? Your arms and your neck and your head and your face? Again, just allowing your body to do whatever it is it wants to do. You're not trying to control it. You're not trying to modify it. You're just listening to it. As I said earlier, the body is very intelligent. We don't have to argue with it. And we'll take a few more minutes just for being with our body sensations. As we did before as well, just allowing any feelings, any emotions, any thoughts, not trying to control anything, but just let everything be as it is. Let everything just rest into its natural state. Without us having to control or manage. Just allowing whatever wants to happen. If there's some discomfort or pain that you experience, see if you can just allow it. If it's too much, then just get up and come out of the exercise. If something is happening for you that feels too strong or too difficult, you don't have to follow what I'm saying right now. Or if there's very strong emotions that are coming up, just do whatever it is that you need to do in order to support yourself, in order to regulate yourself. It might mean getting up, taking a walk, having a drink, or whatever. But if you're able to just be with whatever it is that's going on, see if you can just stay with it. Just stay present with whatever it is that's going on in your body, allowing your body to do what it wants to do. And we don't really know what that is, but we can listen for it. We can be open to it. And so when we practice like this, in a sense, we are practicing letting go. We're practicing allowing things to happen rather than us directing things or managing things. And when we let go in this way, not always, but we may then start to rest and settle. And that state of settling is really a very potent state to access for our health and healing. Just stay resting not managing, just allowing. Takes time. What I'm going to invite you to do now is don't just, instead of just being aware of what's present inside your body, instead of just being aware of the sensations in your body, are you able to take in some of a sense of the space around you? Are you able to take in a sense, for example, of the room that you're in? Its atmosphere, its light, maybe its smell, its quality. You can do this with your eyes closed. You don't have to open your eyes. But what we're doing is we're just allowing our attention to widen and to breathe out into the space around us. And actually, our attention does that very naturally, given the chance. It's not something we have to force or do. But when we rest, when we let go, very naturally, our attention will start to breathe out. It'll start to widen. And it may widen into the space around you. It may widen out beyond the walls of the room, out into the environment. And just allow your attention just to breathe out as far as it wants to go. It could go all the way to the horizons, but just go as far as it feels you're kind of ready to go, or it feels comfortable to go. Just letting go. And allowing your attention to widen. So that not only do you have a sense of yourself, not only do you have a sense of your body, but you've also got some kind of connection and orientation to the environment around you. And is there anything that you can receive from the environment? Is there anything that you can take in, that you can allow to come into your body? And is there anything that you would like to let go of or express or release into the space around you? And again, this is not about trying to do something. It's not about making an effort. It's about resting, letting go, and being available, and just allowing whatever wants to happen. What can you receive? What wants to kind of come into you, come inside you, into your cells, into your body? What can you allow? Remember that life is not only inside us, it's all around us. The space around us is teeming with life, teeming with energy, with vitality, with potency. I'm going to sit here for maybe 5 more minutes, just resting and allowing whatever it is that wants to come in, let it come in, allowing whatever wants to leave, whatever wants to be resolved or released or breathed out, letting it go. Just allowing this interchange. It's like our body is a single cell in interchange with its environment, letting things in and letting things out, which is how we can function healthily, which is how we can become healed, how we can become reformed. Just resting and allowing. Dr. Sutherland described that primary respiration or subtle rhythmic motion is not limited to the body. The whole environment is breathing in and breathing out. The whole of the natural world is breathing in and breathing out, and we can be an interchange with that if we can allow it, if we can find the right conditions. If you find yourself starting to overthink or manage or control, just see if you can rest again. Just acknowledge that. Don't need to give yourself a hard time. Just again, see if you can let go. And this is really about just finding conditions within which we can let life come into us. In which we can become open and available for that as best as we can at this moment in time. So just receiving whatever it is. What does the space around you, what does the environment want to say to you right now? What could you take in? And what can you allow to leave? And take just another minute or two. Resting in a state of availability. Just allowing whatever wants to happen, letting your body do what it wants to do. And allowing some kind of interchange, some kind of dynamic communication between you and the space around you. Taking in and receiving whatever you can, whatever is useful. Letting go, whatever it is you don't need anymore. Great. And then when you're ready, if your eyes are closed, you can slowly open them, maybe take a stretch and maybe take a few deep breaths as well. And just transition your attention back into the room that you're in and back into our meeting. And I'd be really happy to hear from a few of you. I don't know if you're shy or you want to say anything or share anything. If not, I'll carry on talking for a little bit, but really happy to hear what is your experience, or if you've got any comments or any questions. How are you doing? What do you notice going on in your body right now? Say anything.
There's Bridget. Bridget.
Yes. Oh, Bridget.
Hello.
How-
Well, I had a very difficult day with somebody having long, difficult diagnosis. So I kind of felt my heart pounding as if I'd had the diagnosis as well,
Hmm.
and a lot of tension. But the first exercise didn't really shift that. But thinking about the room didn't shift it, but says there's a possibility to shift it, because I've always done a lot of movement and creativity in the room around. So it kind of is possibility, even if you're still feeling very tense and really holding the same thing that the person's holding in some ways.
Yes. I think thank you for that, Bridget. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry that feels so difficult right now, but I think that's very important and that's very valuable in that it's not that the issue has gone away, but maybe there's a bit more space within it or a bit more space around it. And I hope that will put you in a position where you'll be able to work with that a bit more, or whatever is the situation, or to resolve it. At least as far as you can. And I think that's a good result, even just to feel that sense, because I think when we're in those kind of difficult experiences and difficult patterns, there's very little space, is there? We're just in it, and we can kind of go round and round in it. And again, this is what the neutral can help us to open to it. It can help. It's what I said earlier. It's like as Leonard Cohen said, it's the crack through which something else can come in. And if we can find that space, if we can find that crack, so things are not quite as held as fixed, then there's an opportunity for something else to happen. Then there's an opportunity for healing to happen and for things to start to resolve. So really wishing you well with that, and I hope that continues to progress.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Nipunam, light and spacious. That's
Hi.
great.
Hi again.
Yes.
I'm very new to craniosacral, so I wasn't sure what I was supposed to feel, but I did feel sort of spaciousness, as you just saw the commented by someone else. But how do we know when I was trying to connect with the outside and not just here more in the universal level? How do we know what we are feeling is not your own mental projection and it is actually what it is?
Yes, yes. So I think the short answer to the question is practice, practice, practice. You get to know.
Right.
And of course, it is very easy just to be projecting and to be giving ideas. I think, you will know yourself, were you thinking this? Because when you start to think it, maybe that's the point that you can begin to go, okay, I'm just thinking about this now. Can I just rest? Can I just let go? If you keep coming back to that state of letting go and resting into the neutral, you will just get to recognize it more and more. And of course, it's not something, can I say that, we teach it. It's an integral skill. It's not the only skill, but it's an integral skill that we teach on our training courses. But this is not the sort of thing that you learn in school. You don't learn this in chiropractic school or in medical school or in, certainly not in our, kind of, child education. We're not taught how to let go. We're not taught how to just trust and rest and allow things to happen. So it does require a lot of practice, to get used to that and to kind of get comfortable with that. At first, it might feel very awkward. It might feel like, oh my God, am I losing myself? Am I just imagining? All of these kind of concerns and anxieties may come up. But with practice, it happens more and more and more and more easily and more naturally. And if this is something that we can do also, and we can practice, which we do a lot of on the training, with hands-on a patient, it also really helps that patient to access that state. So, if the practitioner can begin to let go and hold the space for the patient can begin to let go and allow whatever it is that wants to happen. And that's when a healing or therapeutic process can take place, I would say, at a much deeper level.
Right. Thank you. Yes.
So, it's a good question because it's something to be aware of. I think it's good to be skeptical as well. Yeah, maybe I'm just imagining this. Maybe I'm just fantasizing. Maybe I'm just projecting this. Very good. But with practice, you're going to get to know whether you're doing that, and you're also going to get to trust when you're not doing it.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'd love to share a little piece.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Brian, tuning in from Taos, New Mexico.
Okay, warm welcome to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I just came out of a 4-day structural integration training where we're doing core hours. And so I'm on 20 plus times in this meeting today, just down regulating. And I love the image of the muddy water settling. That really resonates my body. And to think about how gravity is wanting me to let go and to just be. And to let the water fluid aspect wash through me. Even as I say that right now, I feel that moving through me again. So I just want to say thank you. It's a joy to be here today.
Thank you, Brian. I'm delighted you can join us.
Thank you.
Great. Good. Any questions that anyone has? I kind of put out a lot of ideas today. I'm not sure how they landed. Has it raised any questions, any other questions for you?
Well, I have questions. Sorry.
Well, it's some tennis.
It's Hampton, yes.
Yes.
I'm very new to it, so I'm very curious as well. So when we talk about primary respiration, because I deal with patients, I'm an osteopath, like I told you earlier, but how do we listen to those subtle rhythms? Is it different from the normal respiration? Is it, and where do you feel it the most in order to practice that?
Yeah. Okay, great question. Yes, it is an independent rhythm. Of course, we have, everything in life is expressed in rhythms, whether it be lung breathing, whether it be heartbeat. But what Sutherland identified is that there is an involuntary motion that underlies these other rhythms. Interestingly, this is also recognized. You practice Tibetan medicine. This is also recognized in Tibetan medicine. It's sometimes referred to as the wind of the vital forces in Tibetan medicine. It's that subtle life breath. It's that subtle breath that sometimes it's just called an inner breath that happens, which is not lung breathing or heartbeat. It's a kind of a deeper breath. And this is felt everywhere in the body. But also what we've come to know and what Sutherland discovered is that there's not only one subtle rhythm, there are a number of subtle rhythms. And learning, it's possible to learn how to sense, how to feel. And again, this is a big part of the training. We learn to palpate these rhythms. We learn to sense them. We learn to synchronize with them. And we learn to work with them as well when, if there's been some kind of fragmentation or dysregulation. But it might be a question that all, in a state of health, all these different rhythms are all in kind of flow, in interchange with each other. But just picking up on one of the principles that I touched on this evening, if that interchange doesn't take place, this can create a lot of issues, okay? Okay, let me think if I can give you an example. I was treating somebody who had chronic fatigue syndrome. Very, very bad symptoms, had been suffering with chronic fatigue for about 12 years, had been to so many different practitioners, acupuncturists, psychotherapists, massage therapists, body workers, etc. Absolutely desperate. She was getting the full-blown symptoms of muscle aches and real exhaustion, unable to function for any kind of particular length of time. And what I found was when I had my attention quite wide and quite spacious, I could feel this field around her body, something I've learned how to sense, okay? But I could also feel that this field was very contracted. It was very sort of defended. It wasn't in interchange with the wider field, the wider environment around her. And so she wasn't receiving those kind of life-giving forces that I was touching on earlier. It was like there was some kind of contraction. And this was very interesting, because physically she was exhausted. And I kind of felt, well, I wonder, maybe this is what's underpinning her physical condition. And so I told her this. I gave her my sort of ideas around this, and I started to do some work with this field around her body that also has a rhythmic motion. And I was able to help to create some conditions where it could begin to soften, it could begin to let go, and it could begin to let things in and let things out. Short story, within 10 treatments, it was over a number of months, but still within 10 treatments, she was pretty well symptom-free. 12 treatments, no, I think 10 treatments, 90% symptom-free. 12 treatments, I think we said goodbye and I didn't see her again. It was a fantastic result. It happened over maybe 4 or 5 months, something like that. Nothing happens, it's not like some kind of instant, miracle cure. But this was just a great example of how this interchange is so important and how it has very direct physiological ramifications.
Right. Okay, thank you. And so it is the subtle energies that we talk about in yoga, prana, isn't it?
Yes, very similar. Yes, it is.
Nadi and prana, the wind channels and.
It's similar again, there's a lot of correspondences and there's a lot of resonances. Biodynamics is a vitalistic therapy. It is it is an energy therapy. It's not, it's not just a mechanical therapy. Unfortunately, it's often taught as a mechanical therapy, but that's not the work that was developed by the founders and certainly by the wonderful teachers who I've had the opportunity to study with. It is a vitalistic therapy, but it's also a body therapy because it incorporates how these vital forces move through our bodies. So it's not just an energy therapy, it's also a physiological therapy as well. It works with that interface.
Right.
And in terms of those energies, again, in the Chinese medical understanding, and I think also in Tibetan medicine, there are many different levels of energy. There's what's called elemental energy, which is usually what is described as moving through the nadis and the meridians and the channels, basically. But there is also another quality of energy that's sometimes called fundamental energy. In Chinese medicine, it's called Xingqi, which is that sort of primary energy. And the sense that I have is that what we're working with in craniosacral biodynamics is that sort of fundamental primary energy that sort of underpins all the other kind of body systems. It is recognized in some forms of Oriental medicine. I'm not an expert on that, but I've certainly had enough exposure to be able to hopefully answer your question.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Great.
I have a question.
Yeah, Marta, welcome back.
Yeah. Just because I think it was very interesting this with the rhythms in us, that it's important they are in interchange with our surroundings, like the energies outside us.
Yes.
When you were talking about this, the client you had, where this had kind of stopped a bit, do you know why it stopped? Was it a fear or like a mental attitude? Yeah.
Yeah. It was actually related to some traumatic experiences that she had, and we were able to acknowledge that, and she was able to kind of be with that. But it's as if what had happened to her. It wasn't so much physiologically, but it was like something in her field just kind of locked in and locked down, and it couldn't let things in and it couldn't let things out. And in the end, she just became, very, very exhausted. For a period. That was her story.
Right.
It can be different stories. It doesn't mean that's always the fundamental cause.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Good. Okay. Well, I've got a little bit of time at the end. I'm just going to come back to screen share. I don't know how many of you are interested in training, but I want to talk a little bit about that, if you can bear with me, just to share a little bit about what's involved and what we do. I'm going to just go there and there. So, there's lots and lots of different courses that are around. And I think what we offer is a really solid foundation teaching many, many different skills. You know, what we've looked at tonight has just been kind of one aspect of the work and an important central aspect, but there's a whole range of skills that people in this practice, I think, need to learn. And that's why I'm going to say what we offer is a 2-year training, not a 2-hour training or a 2-day training. It's a 2-year training because there's really quite a lot that is needed. There are 48 days of classroom attendance. That's split into seminars that are 4 to 5 days in length. So each seminar will run from maybe, let's say, a Thursday through to a Sunday, or from a Wednesday through to a Sunday. And the seminars are held approximately every 2 months, which in our experience provides really a kind of optimum, what can I say, time space between the seminars to practice the skills, to integrate the skills, and then come back and learn a whole bunch of new skills. We offer a lot of supervised practice in class. We have a tutor to student ratio of 1 tutor for 4 students at all times. So there's a lot of personal support, particularly when people go on to the treatment tables, because that's when, you know, we cover some kind of theory, we'll look at some principles, but then we'll go on to the treatment tables to practice. And that's usually where the real learning takes place. So there are tutors who can come around and they can put their hands together with yours and they can support you and they can guide you as well, in terms of, you know, finding a way to integrate and to embody the skills that are being taught. There's home study between the seminars. We ask you to practice an average of 2 sessions a week, just practicing the skills. And that's very important, you know, between the seminars, any work that you do there, just to help kind of develop your skills and integrate the skills. We have a very unique teaching clinic that runs every Monday in London. And people on the courses are asked to attend the clinic during the 2nd year of their training. And this gives a lot of really great hands-on experience, working with real live patients, very often quite challenging patients with difficult conditions, but doing that with support of tutors so that you get that experience and that hands-on experience in clinical situation. We're one of the first schools to form. I started this school back in 1989 with a wonderful colleague called Franklin Sills. Franklin has been retired for a number of years, but we worked together for maybe 20 years or something like that. And also I've had the opportunity to study with some of the great teachers within this profession. My first mentor was an osteopathic doctor who had studied with the person who first brought cranial work to the UK, and that was in the early 1960s. And then he took me under his kind of wing, and I worked in his practice for many years. And I had the opportunity to study with some of the really great pioneering teachers that I've been very, you know, grateful to in terms of my understanding. And I think that's very important, because I think that, I think there's a lot of people these days who are teaching versions of the work that don't necessarily honor the roots of the work. And one of my commitments is that I do want to honor those roots, because I think those roots are pretty important and pretty solid. So, you know, having that sense of connection and lineage, I think, is very useful. We've been very much at the cutting edge of developing this curriculum. We have lots and lots of interactive and creative teaching methods, you know, movement practice and explorations in the classroom. So it's not just kind of dry lectures and listening, and, you know, we really try to keep everything as experiential as possible. And we've also been, bringing in lots of new elements into the curriculum. So, for example, things that have been in the last 10, 15, 20 years developed within the field of trauma, we've integrated this into our curriculum. There's a lot of new understandings of fascia, which has been, so much research has been done in the last 10 or 15 years. This has been integrated into the curriculum. Yeah, a lot of other things, a lot of work in the field of embryology as well, which we study in the practice, which also when we study the embryology, we start to learn how we are formed. We can also start to learn how we are healed, because as I said, excuse me, a few minutes ago, it's the same forces that create us that are the forces that heal us. So it's actually really useful to look at embryology and to look at the movements that take place during our embryological development, because this can help us to synchronize with the movements that will heal us. We offer support between the seminars, and also for long distance people. We have quite an international contingent. We think over the last few years, maybe at least a third of our students come from other countries. We started doing some online teaching during COVID time because we absolutely had no choice, but we've continued to do some of that, particularly for our international colleagues. So we've given some flexibility where it's possible to attend up to the first 4 seminars online if you can't get yourself to London. If you can, it's so much better, because then we can put hands with you, but and we can work with you in the classroom. But also the online attendees, we can also observe how you work. You're sent a schedule so that you can practice the practice sessions at the same time as the people in the classroom, and you're part of that whole process. That you're going along with everybody who's in the room as well at the same pace. And the purpose is really to provide a good, solid foundation for professional practice. My own view is that this is the minimum that is needed in order to become a really good, all-round, skillful practitioner. And you will find that there are shorter courses, some of them very short. My own view is that what we offer is really the minimum that is needed in order to have a good baseline of skills. We work with the whole body. So, craniosacral therapy is a bit of a funny name. It's not really a very good name, because people think, oh, it just work. You mean you do work with the cranium, you do work with the head, and you do work with the sacrum. But that's not the case. It is a whole body, whole person approach. So we'll work with all of the different cranial bones. We'll look at skills as to how to work with them. We'll work with the brain, the central nervous system, the fluid that surrounds and interpenetrates the brain. We'll work with the spine and vertebral issues, and for things where there are spinal conditions and things like that. We'll work with the arms and the legs. We'll work with the fascia. We work with the viscera. So we'll look at how to work with a liver or a heart, or how to work with the lungs. So all of this is covered. So by the end of the training, you have a really good all-round approach. But also we work and integrate a lot of trauma skills into the training, because developing some of those verbal skills is also very important, particularly working with clients who are in a traumatized state. It's sometimes the hands-on work can be very usefully supported by appropriate verbal skills. And so we start working with that pretty early in the training. We have a training starting in April. So we're kind of, recruiting for that now. We're taking applications for that now. The first seminar is on April 9th to 13th. That can be joined in London or online. I'm also doing an introductory weekend in early March. It's on March 1st and 2nd. So if you did want to just come and have a more in-depth taster, you're very welcome to join me for that. That's also available in London or online. So I think that's really about it. I'm going to just stop the share here. So I think that's about it. I'm happy to just open up. I think we're pretty well on time now as well. But do any of you have any questions around that, or are you happy to leave it there?
Hi, Michael. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hello, Tanya.
Hi, I have a question. You were talking about the Monday clinics in London for the second year.
Yes.
I'm in Ireland at the moment. Well,
Yes.
hopefully moving somewhere warmer soon. We'll see.
Yes.
But probably won't be in the UK. I used to live in London, but my question is like, is it because it would be, it could be doable for me to get to London every 2 months, but every week, I wouldn't want to miss out on.
No, Tanya, don't worry. That's not going to be asked of you. Actually, all of our long distance and international students can do their clinics around the training seminars. So you do not need to make extra journeys to London.
Okay, so do you mean like I would need to practice not necessarily in a clinic, but just find clients to work with myself?
Yeah, I mean, what we ask you to do is to practice an average of 2 sessions a week, pretty well from the first seminar.
Okay.
Practicing all of the different skills that we're going through, yeah, and that you do that throughout the 2-year training. But then in addition to that, we ask you to attend a designated number of sessions at the teaching clinic. And for the international students, as I say, those sessions can be fitted in around the training seminars so that you don't have to make extra journeys to London.
Oh, that's great. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, the teaching clinics kick in only once you've reached after seminar 4. That's when you can start attending the clinic, and your clinic sessions can be spread throughout the whole of the second year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thanks. Anything else? I'm going to give there's something else I forgot to do. I'm going to give another little plug if I can. And that is, I'll just show this for a moment. But if you want to find out a bit more about the practice and do some reading, you can get a copy of my book. It's gone into the 3rd edition now. It's available in about 11 or 12 different languages. But this edition is available on Amazon. I just kind of re-looked at it and rewrote it a couple of years ago. So it was actually the first book to be published on biodynamic craniosacral work, but there's been a number of sort of updates and additions over the last 25 years or so. But it gives a pretty good overview of the practice, just if you wanted to kind of get a more in-depth introduction. So this is absolutely not a hard sell, but I just wanted to draw your attention to that if you wanted to do a little bit more background reading to inform yourself.
Hi, Michael.
Oh, yes. Is that Mika?
Mika, yeah. Hiya. I have one more question.
Go ahead.
How is the course examined?
Do you mean how do we examine the students, or how are we examined as a school?
how do you examine the students?
Okay. Well, we do that as we go along. That we work with you a lot in the classroom. There is home study that's involved, and we ask you to write up home study. So we get to know if somebody is having difficulties or struggling. It's not all left to some sort of huge exam at the end that, you know, you have to kind of go through. So it's very much done on continual communication. We get to pick up very quickly, very easily where people are struggling, and then we look to put in remedial measures if that's required. There are exams at the end, but before you start freaking out, there's a written exam, which is a take-home open book exam that you self-time. Okay, so it's not done, you know, in sort of exam conditions that you know, at the school with an invigilator and so on. It's open book exam, so you can have all your notes, all your books out in front of you. The purpose of the exam is not to test your short-term memory, which is what most exams do, but to test your understanding and how you're able to access information. Okay, so it's kind of, you do it in the comfort of your own home, and it's done towards the end of the course. But that does need to be successfully completed. And if you completely blow it, you then get another opportunity to do it. And, you know, there's no, you know, so if you do need to repeat or resit, there's opportunities to do that. There is also a practical assessment towards the end of the course where you're asked to work with one of the tutors and demonstrate a baseline of skills. And again, you know, that's something that we do, can I say, in a very supportive way. But if you completely blow it, you can just, you know, there's an opportunity for redoing it and, you know, for retaking. So there's a practical assessment, which is about a half an hour of hands-on work with a tutor, maybe 40 minutes. And there's a take-home open book written exam. But it's done not only on that, it's really done on you completing you know, your home practice sessions, your home study. All of these things go towards your graduation requirements.
Lovely. Thank you.
Good. Where are you based, Micah? Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your
I'll
name.
pop the camera on. I'm in Swansea.
Okay, so not too far. Yes.
Not too far. No, but I am a McTimoney chiropractor, so new graduate, and I don't fancy jumping straight back into chiropractic school level of education in terms of dissertation and lots of exams. So
we don't have dissertation, there's no thesis. What we do ask people to do during the second year of the course is what we call a case history project, where we ask you to find 3 volunteer clients who will commit themselves to a series each of 8 treatments. This is spread throughout the whole of the second year. And we just ask for your feedback and reflection. You write reports on that. So there's a case history project. It's a very sort of practice-based. It's not just theoretical based.
Yeah, we have to do a lot of reflective practice anyway. So, but I think it's a great tool to use anyway. But yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much.
Really welcome. Thanks, Mika. Great. Anything else?
I do have one more question for now, Michael. Sorry, it just popped into my head.
Oops, I think
sorry, I muted myself.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, is it typical, or would it be typical for someone who's completed the training to go into, say, full-time practice immediately?
The answer is yes and no. Yes, that the purpose of the course is to train people with a range of skills that you can then go into full-time practice. But don't think it's like anything. You're setting up your own practice. You're setting up your own business. Maybe some of you have already got that. You know, you've already got a client list and so on. But you know, let's say, it's not going to happen that you finish your training and then suddenly your phone is going to start ringing and you're going to get into full-time practice. It takes time to build. It comes through word of mouth. It takes time to develop. But the possibilities and the potentialities for that are certainly there. So, and even living in remote areas, many of our graduates have very, very busy practices, even if they're living, not necessarily in big cities, but, out in the country. People come to see them. People will seek out your services. If you're offering a good service, if you're helping people, if you're offering a really good solid foundation of skills, people will come to see you. People need it. This work is needed, and people will seek you out when you've got that.
That's lovely. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. So I think we should leave it there. We've overrun a little bit, but hopefully that's okay. I do thank you for your attention and thank you for your interest. If you do have any questions, then do feel free to be in touch. You can be in touch with our administrator, Esther, or if you do have any questions for me, those messages will get passed on and either I can reply or we can have a quick chat if that's helpful. Thank you, Lawrence. It's lovely to see you. Always looking to expand your skills. That's really great. And thank you. Well, thank you. I hope you found it some beneficial. Some good comments coming in, which I really appreciate. So thank you for that. Yeah, just be in touch, and hopefully we'll see some of you. But just be in touch if you have any queries. And thank you very much for joining us. I'll leave it there. Great.